And I have the first question. Describe 3 distinct community college students.
That's a great question because it speaks to the diversity of the people that we try to serve in our educational mission. Actually, there's one that stands out to me, Bob Moorman. I've already mentioned his name in the CLC today. Very first class that I taught for a community college in the northern suburbs of Houston. Bob was in his mid-70s. He was just back from his work as a welder on the Alaska Pipeline Project. He had a family of 3 or 4 children and a wife, and he was looking for a way to advance his life through education. And so he was very dedicated, outspoken, brought a wealth of experience to the classroom, and he's the kind of person that really adds to the mix and stimulates a lot of perspective for our classrooms. The other kind of student would be a little bit younger in my mind, and I don't know if I'm limited to 3, but I'll try to stick to that. There are a number of students who are academic high performers in college, in high school, and are ready for a highly stimulating environment at a community college. The example of that was that in Alpena, one of the local foundations hosts a dinner for the parents and the favorite teacher. I think that's really a nice touch. Favorite teacher from K through 12 that the student invites, and they give tribute to their for the top 5% of the graduating class of the high school, and they give tribute to their teacher, their parents, and then they say where they're going to college. And I was really gratified last time we had one of those affairs up in Alpena to find that the split between University of Michigan and Alpena Community College was equal. And so for whatever reason, people are not always ready to go long distance away from home and the community that they've grown up in, and ready for the kind of high-powered learning communities, honors programs. They're looking for freshman classes that are taught by fully qualified professors rather than a teaching assistant, which is what they might get in a university. And so those are also quite compelling in the classroom. The other kind of student is the kind of student who maybe had too much fun in high school, as we say up in Alpena, academically underprepared, or may have some skills but needs some help in other areas. And to me, it's been one of the most gratifying experiences of being a community college faculty member and later an administrator, to serve people who have so much potential and need some encouragement and fostering. So those would be the big 3 exemplars of the kinds of students that we seek to serve. And you could divide them in other ways as well, but maybe I better stop there.
The next question is mine. It's to speak into this. It's a 2-part question, maybe 3. The first part of it is, though, could you describe for us the optimal college culture? And then the second part is, using examples from your past, how did you promote this culture, and how would you promote it at Grcc?
Mm-hmm. I guess the 2 words that I would use, and they really do go hand in hand in a synergistic way, would be trust and accountability. Trust and accountability. And you can't have one without the other. Promotion of trust, I think, has to be cultivated by showing that you are genuine, being a person of your word, showing consistency over time, fidelity to what you say you are going to do, and following through with that. And more than that, it's creating, and this is sort of an emotional intelligence that leaders are called upon to utilize, as well as just knowledge of the field and technical disciplines. Emotional intelligence of creating an empathetic climate, a warm climate, a welcome, a kind of interaction that gets conversations going and sharing. And a lot of that also has to do, the trust factor has to do with entrusting people who have assigned responsibilities once their outcomes and their goals are clarified. And then that takes a big piece of work, too. Trusting them to do their best work with a minimum amount of interference. And yes, there has to be monitoring, and that kind of goes to the accountability factor. But giving them as much liberty and therefore buy-in and contribution of their own vision of how to accomplish the goals as possible. And then getting out of their way. It is so energizing to people, instead of standing over their shoulder and hectoring them along, to say, here's the vision of what needs to be done, go to it. And I've seen time and time again, I believe that there's been a strong growth of that culture at Alpena Community College since I've been there. I think if you ask people that I worked with in Texas, you would also find the same type of culture. One of my quotes in the public forum this afternoon I'm going to use comes from a great business leader here in Grand Rapids, Max Dupree, and he says it's an honor to be held accountable. And the depth of profundity of that statement has always impressed me. I like being around people who embrace accountability because if you think about it, well, what would people be saying about you or implying about you if they didn't hold you accountable? It's not very flattering. So I love being around people who embrace accountability. When you ask people to embrace accountability, you have to create that climate of trust where you know if people are doing great work that they will be recognized and appreciated, but also if they're having problems that they will be supported. If they've taken well-intentioned and well-researched risks that didn't go well, that they have an opportunity to recover from those risks, that they're applauded for taking risks rather than punished. So those are some of the factors that would play into the twin concepts of trust and accountability as a definition of the ideal college culture that I'd like to operate in.
Thanks.
I have the next question. How do you keep the Board of Trustees well informed about college operations without encouraging the trustees to micromanage? And then the second part is, how do you as president remain well informed without micromanaging?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Well, if we start with the trustee part, I'm in my 5th year at Alpena Community College, my first presidency, I had a conversation with John this morning, and I use the term dark side, having gone over to the dark side relatively late in my career. And one of the big learning curves for me as a first-time president was adjusting from the fact I'd always had one boss, knew what that person expected and knew how to deliver, and now you have 7 elected people and working with them. I think it's extremely important for the president to relate to the board as a whole rather than have privileged communication with some members and not with others. Frankly, I struggled with that during the first year or so until the board members and I sat down and I stumbled a little bit and let people out of the loop that I shouldn't have. And the board members suggested, well, why don't you write us a weekly email communication that sums up what your foci and most intense processes of work have been the week that's ending. I do it on Friday afternoon. And then what you see on the horizon coming up. And so in addition to all of the formal ways of interacting with the board, those informal ways, that's helped tremendously to take the element of surprise out. It's all the trustees are getting the same message, and it's just solved a lot of problems, the communication factor. The other thing I do with the trustees is anytime, and I told the trustees with whom I had dinner last night, anytime I have interaction with a person from the media, the press, I send out something that's jocularly titled Media Contact Alert, and because I want them to know the nature of the communication before they are surprised on the street or hear about it from somebody else or read it in the paper and they didn't. And again, we learn best from experiences, don't we? So I made some mistakes and was able to work with them in a productive manner to correct. Regarding the president's interaction with the staff within the college, again, trust and accountability. Trust, you take that to its logical conclusion. I am known as a delegator, much more so than my predecessor at Alpena Community College, and that has been an extremely salutary and healthful step for the college to take. It took some adjustment, and I don't really know what the culture here is, but it took some adjustment for people to move from being told in pretty intimate detail what to do and how to conduct their business to being wide open discipline and making those choices themselves. It was an adjustment period. I sense that that's a culture here, and it's something that I would want to continue here. It is the president's responsibility. This goes back to accountability. Which is the second of your Raiders values, is that right? It is the president's responsibility to make sure that things are on track. The wealth of information which your IT department and which you generate for continuous quality improvement would give a president of Grcc just a very solid base for tracking the performance of the institution and reporting that accurately to the public and to the trustees. And so monitoring, I also believe very strongly in assigning to officers of the institution the roles that their job descriptions include. And so it would be very unusual for me personally to intervene in an issue that was in, let's say, an instructional or IT or HR department. I would always want to honor the functions that the leaders of those units would have to do their best job of solving the problem, and through the reporting channels, if there's further work for the president to do, again, work through the vice presidents and the deans in that manner.
Okay, then the next question. Provide an example when in your current job there was a limited source of funds and two equally deserving recipients, the workforce development and liberal arts schools, were requesting the funds.
You're going to try to catch me.
How did you resolve this situation?
Well, sometimes politicians will avoid answering the question directly, and there may be a bit of a flavor to that. The first thing to be said is that I believe that there's an artificial division between those two. I'd say it this way: just about everybody who engages in a liberal arts curriculum at a community college wants to put those skills that are required in the social sciences and the humanities to use in a workplace setting. So an English course is every bit as much workforce development as dental hygiene or whatever else might be in a technical skill. I'm fond of saying philosophy, my own discipline, is the most practical thing that you could ever use in the workplace, because it teaches you analysis, logical thinking, values, comparisons, and so on. So whenever community colleges can get rid of the antithesis between the two and integrate the two, where, for example, an auto service program might have a healthy writing component, or a reading component, or a mathematics curriculum is introduced into a technical discipline. Those are the shining examples of bringing the curriculum together that I think we can be most proud of. A specific example would be at Alpena Community College, we have just barely succeeded in hiring the final faculty member for our nursing program. And nursing faculty members are very hard to recruit. The MSNs are in short supply. It's a statewide and probably a national problem that the legislature in a couple of iterations has tried to get a hold of with the Michigan Nursing Corps. $10 million provision that went up in smoke this latest round of budgeting. But we had a mandate to fill that position. We also needed to fill positions in philosophy and in humanities, network administration. We are somehow able to, through good dialogue with the faculty and a strategic planning committee at ACC, to agree upon what the top priorities were for the faculty positions that would be funding in the coming year. In this particular year, although the chemistry faculty, and this speaks to your heart, chemistry faculty had been arguing and presenting good data for an additional chemistry position, as we talked it through and on our strategic planning committee and prioritized the greatest needs. The faculty representatives on that committee said, yes, we believe that nursing is a higher priority than chemistry. Let's go with nursing this year and put chemistry at the top of the list for consideration next year. So I guess the best answer is the technique of consensus, open dialogue, inclusive processes of input. Ultimately, the president has to make a decision about what to recommend to the board. But I was satisfied in this particular case of nursing versus chemistry that the faculty understood the reasons, and the whole team understood the reasons, and that a good process of letting every perspective on the issue come out.
Dr. Joynton, I have the next question. Let's say the college produces a controversial play that tests the values of the community. There is extensive negative press coverage, and you are receiving phone calls from board members and community members alike. College-wide funding is being threatened at the legislative level. You have the ultimate decision to continue or discontinue the play. What would you consider before making a decision regarding this?
Well, I know there has been such an incident here at GRCC with a play about Jesus and the apostles. Am I correct? And that's a
this
traumatic.
Is purely hypothetical.
And it was Koyman, the legislator, who threatened to pull the funding. You know, that's a traumatic moment for a college when a significant part of its funding is threatened. Well, I know it's diminished. I think it's now about 15% of your general operating fund, but you know, that's a huge amount. Let me give you an analogy of something similar that happened at Alpena Community College and how we worked it out. And by the way, I think the solution that unfolded, the community group that wanted to produce a play here agreed, didn't require President Oliveras to make that decision, offered to take it off campus. That I think that probably worked out well for everybody. The experience I had along those lines goes back to shortly after I arrived. The interesting is the timing of these things is interesting. You have a brand new president, first time in Michigan, first time in Alpena, first time to be a president, and then boom, here it is. Michael Moore's film, this is Fahrenheit 9/11. Okay, and there was a group within the college actually that wanted to present this film, and I said, yes, we're in a campaign season. This is part of the vigorous the opposition of different points of view and the dialogue and the discussion that should characterize a college campus. Naive me. I began to get very angry phone calls, not from legislators, but from members of the foundation board. Olin, if you allow this, we are never going to donate any more to this college, and pretty soon you'll be finished. So I had to listen to that. I mean, I didn't want an enterprise that was just getting off the ground to go up in smoke. I did my best to explain my effort. I think it's always important for a community college that has community as its middle name to respect community values, do what it can to create community confidence and support for its operation. Equally important, academic freedom, artistic freedom, the idea that this kind of goes to the D in your raters, the diversity, exposing people to the diversity of different viewpoints, kind of shaking them out of their mindset that they've grown up with and having them look at responsible expressions of different points of view that will make them think and advance their critical thinking skills, which is one of your GLOs, I believe. So all that stuff is very important to me. It must have been a godsend. God must have been looking out for me because when the local Republican Party got wind of Fahrenheit 9/11 being shown at ACC, they said, you know what, I got a call from a gentleman who was running for state legislature, Rick Fortier, electrician in Alpena, and he said, there's a counter to that movie called Fahrenheit 9/11. Have you all heard about that? And what it does is to take Michael Moore's work and tear it to shreds. And he said, I would like to help you solve your problem, Olin, because I know you have a problem by having back-to-back showings of both of those films. And I was able then to go back to the foundation trustees and say, we've got, this is not one-sided. The college is not taking a position on any of these issues, but we want to be a forum for exchange of ideas. And it worked out fine. We had one foundation board member quit, although she was mad at one of the other foundation board members before that happened anyway, so I don't know if this may have been the straw for her, but the most vehement objector on the foundation board to the showing of Fahrenheit, not Fahrenheit, the Fahrenheit 9/11. I see my times. Agreed with the decision, and he and I are on excellent terms, and went to a foundation board meeting after that, and there was one gentleman retired from the insurance business. He said, "Olin, why did you even give it a second thought? It's obvious we should be showing stuff like that." So every decision that you're afraid to make on those lines, there will be people that will be rooting for you also. Get the stuff out there. Controversy is good, as within limits and conducted in a responsible way. Last thing, if I have a couple more seconds, is again, the discipline of philosophy is one in which you are encouraged to look at many different points of view, engage debate and dialogue. And so that's one of the things about academic life that I really love.
Dr. Joynton, it's back to me. Grcc has several satellite campuses.
Yes.
Drawing upon your philosophy of learning and experience as a leader, what resources are needed to best support student success at a satellite campus, and how would you prioritize these resources?
Well, that's a very good question. It's one that community colleges everywhere that I have been a part of have wrestled with, because you have a dynamic setup when there's a main campus and a satellite. The satellite sometimes constantly has to press its case for validity, for respect, for resources, and all the kinds of things that go along with that. And it's not easy because, again, if you're looking at focusing resources where they have the greatest impact, it's a great temptation for a president and other administrators to say, well, the satellite campus where we have fewer students doesn't matter as much. It's something we all struggle with. My own personal history with that question most recently, we have a main campus in Alpena. In Oscoda, we have the former headquarters building of a former military base there, Worksmith Air Force Base, a 3-story building. We call it our Huron Shores campus. And the board and I have struggled with whether to continue that operation or not. We have a couple of hundred students there. It's not located very well. It's kind of off to the side, not in the center of town. But we have made the decision within the budgets that we have to work with to spruce it up, to provide carpeting and painting. It was not very presentable when I arrived, and I said, let's at least take the first step, which you've done a marvelous job of doing, of making the campus clean, attractive, functional. So we're making facilities improvement there. We do have 2 full-time faculty members who are located there, and hoping to add another one. We have a good complement of advising staff. I think I haven't seen your Thompson or Tassel MTech centers or your Lakeshore campus. I've read about your learning corners, but all of those symbolize outreach. It's also, the importance has to be remembered that distance to a campus makes a big difference to students' ability to access the education. Anything more than 20-minute commute, the attendance will drop off dramatically. So satellite campuses are a noble effort for the college to reach out to its total region of service. And the other thing is, I think you have to always respect the point of view of people who are doing work at the satellite campus and make sure that their voice and their priorities are heard in the process of allocation of resources. And I think it's also important for officers of the institution to visit and have a presence there, and show up and, announced, of course. But I've sometimes wondered, what would it do for our Huron Shores campus for me to just set aside one day of my week where I do my work there? I mean, you can do work just about anywhere in many things. So I haven't acted on that yet, but the germ of the idea is in my mind, and it's something that I would, if I stay at Alpena Community College, would hope to do this fall.
have another hypothetical question for you.
Okay.
The faculty contract has expired and negotiations have stalled. What do you do?
Well, just a little context. Most of my work as a faculty member was in Texas, which is right to work. Collective bargaining and strikes for public employees are illegal there. So coming to Michigan, another part of my learning curve was learning how a highly organized environment works. And actually, that's, you say it's hypothetical, but it was pretty much the case when I arrived in my first year in Alpena Community College. The first order of business was for us to make sure that we had an extension of the contract agreement in place. Because as part of our contract, that faculty will not strike as long as they're the main period of the contract is in place or an extension thereof. And so we were able to work that out pretty quickly. I would want to ask some questions in that situation of why it stalled, what are the principal issues. Sometimes it's difficult in that situation on both sides to distinguish the central issues from the peripheral issues. And so it'd be a responsibility, I think, of the president to understand what the central issues were, look for any of those that might have the effect of breaking up the logjam. Goes back to my answer to you about trust. If you have a strong level of trust cultivated between the administration from the top down and the faculty, the opportunities for understanding those central issues and what might be necessary, the cultural environment is in place. If you don't, then you have that work to do in order to get to the point where things can start flowing a little bit more freely. I believe, as I've been advised and I've practiced here in Michigan, it's not the responsibility of the president to be directly at the bargaining table, but to delegate that function to others. Primarily, as explained to me, because the president has a unifying role to play once the bargaining is done and the agreement is ready for presentation to the trustees. The other thing that I would add in my experience is, and I'm not an expert in this part of the process, but it did seem to help when I arrived at Alpena, was sidebar discussions. I remember the president of the faculty council saying, Olin, let's just step back from the bargaining table a little bit and just level with one another in a candid manner what we think might move the process along. And, it wasn't an opportunity to make any commitments or any promises, just to solidify what was a good relationship, make it better, the understanding for what the keys to moving ahead would be. And it wasn't too long after we met in the coffee shop of the local Walmart off campus. Just elegant surroundings there, but it was just the right venue for us to get together and have some candid discussion, for me to relay back to the college negotiating team where I thought the faculty were coming from. He did the same thing, and it wasn't too long after that where we were able to make an agreement. So that's my own personal experience. Not a great theoretician of that, but that's what worked for me.
I have the next question, and this question revolves around those three students that you described at the beginning. Would you like me to review those with you?
Bob Moorman, the welder, and then the very motivated and competent high school student, and the one who had too much fun.
Excellent.
We've all seen him, haven't we?
Now, as you think about those students, what do you believe each of them needs to succeed at GRCC, and how would you ensure that this happens?
Okay, very good question. Again, with a diversity of students and encouraging access for all, and endeavoring to be a learning college, a learning community, which is something that you state very well in your organizational documents, your mission, your vision. the great thing about the community college is it's not a one-size-fits-all. We do have much greater capacity for individual treatment of students and understanding of their needs, and understanding the needs before you deliver instruction is key to this process. One of my mottos you've already articulated once today and once in my semifinalist interview. Stephen Covey's one of the marks, I think it may be the first one, of successful people is seek first to understand and then to be understood. And so understanding the difference between what Bob Moorman needs versus the high-performing high school student versus the one who had too much fun. Part of the listening process is just being hospitable and welcoming and social, kind of a social interaction with students. Part of it is formalized through testing and use of testing results for placement. Part of it, and I've been shown your testing lab where you use AccuPlacer. I've been asked the question, the pointed question, okay, do you have mandatory placement based on testing results? And as is the case with most community colleges, I got a mostly so answer. A little bit of waffling, but mostly so. And that's the way what we try to do at Alpena Community College is preach mandatory. You must take this course. And if sometimes students are canny enough to get around that and get into courses that they're not really prepared for anyway. But listening in that manner, and for Bob Moorman, the welder, I think the schedule, the efficiency is going to be paramount. He's got a job, he's got a family, community responsibilities, and he's adept at navigating systems, and he's not going to need a whole lot of help, but scheduling the courses in a way that can meet his needs, the right courses at the right times, and the places that are accessible. It goes back to satellite campuses, will be very important for him. For the high-performing high school student, the honor student, actually one of the pieces of homework missing is whether you have an honors program. So let me ask that question. Okay, and so the extra stimulation that an honors program can provide for students who have that extra inquisitiveness or looking for that depth of understanding, even wisdom about the subject matter, because they're very proficient at mastering the information and the data. That would be an important part. Having faculty members who model lifelong learning themselves, who portray themselves as stimulated and excited about the breaking achievements and developments in their field, who engage in regular professional development, both pedagogical and discipline related, and showing them just what it's like to be in love with learning and loving your own discipline as faculty members do. That would be a big part of it. With the student who, well, there's so many euphemisms for it, who needs remediation, development work, foundation work, resource work, however you wish. What is the reigning terminology here? Are you allowed?
We have an academic foundations.
Academic foundations program. Okay, you have to be. Well, you kind of wonder what the terminology shifts are all about sometimes. But academic foundations work. That's. I know that it's that developmental education is one of the 7 N's of the college that the trustees have specified of primary importance. That's where community college practitioners, faculty, and staff make maybe more of a difference in people's lives than anywhere else. But it's very challenging work as well. A student who tests in needing the more remediation they need or foundation work they need, and the deeper the level, the less likely they are to succeed. And so what are the special measures we have for supporting, like learning communities, supplemental instruction, the ancillary counseling to deal with life's problems, the connectedness with other students through student activities. Those are all factors that help students who are struggling stay with the program. As I said in the CLC this morning, one of the unflattering things to faculty members is that students are more responsive to their peers in performing than they are to the faculty. We have to kind of get over that as faculty members. So encouraging peer culture that helps for success for foundation level students would be very important. Finally, I know I'm running a little over time. To me, the thing more than anything else that makes a difference in a student who's not accustomed to academic ways and maybe hasn't had a lot of success is hope. And can I translate what I'm doing here into my own personal hope for a better life? And we are purveyors of hope in one of those wonderful ways that a person can imagine. You've all experienced that, the person who's struggling, but the dream of a better life as an educated person keeps them going, and we have to keep that hope alive.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We'd like to finish up with seeing if you have any questions for us.
Well, good. I had prepared some questions for this session. I'd like to hear from the faculty what were 2 or 3 of the most effective things about President Olivares' leadership that you experienced, that you would want his successor to continue. What are the best things that he did for the promotion of the learning that you facilitate and that you lead? And if there's anything that you knew or different that you'd want the next president to make sure to concentrate on so that you were able to perform with the students as you need to.
Well, I'll begin with part of it. I think that one of the things that President Olivares did it actually began with before him, but it really came to fruition with him, was to create an environment around collaboration and reflective practice. And what I mean by that is, and I've used this example in many situations, the faculty evaluation model is a good example of this, where we base decisions upon collaboration. And so as a faculty member, it's about collaborating with myself. Well, can't collaborate with yourself, that's reflection. But collaborate with your associate dean, with your other faculty members. Decision making is happened through conversation, through dialogue, about a shared meaning making. And it's premised on the idea that I know what's best for me, and I'm responsible for improving and making my practice better. So I have to have a sense of what's best for the institution, what's best for the department, what's best for the students, and what's best for me. That takes collaboration, it creates dialogue, and from there I need to move forward in improving myself and my practice. And I think the environment that President Olivares created is really premised on that. The trust in the individual to make good decisions, assuming that he or she understands where he or she fits within the institution.
So collaboration is the first one.
Go ahead.
I would probably say just using the idea that a strength taken to extreme is a weakness is the need for collaboration and getting input from a wide variety of people often results in decision-making becoming a very slow process. Mm-hmm. So I would say that maintaining a good balance between getting appropriate input and still having decisions made in a timely fashion would be a recommendation.
That's always a struggle for an administrator because you want to be inclusive and consensus building. There comes to be a time where a decision needs to be made. One of the trickiest things is to communicating that decision. Again, my learning curve as a president, a few times I guess unintentionally misled people early in my tenure at ACC when they thought I had made a decision, and then I talked to somebody else and, oh, well, that's a good idea too, or maybe that cast some doubt on what we thought was the decision. And so I think clarity for the decision makers and the decision is making, and then humility about it, because sometimes we make decisions that are not so good and you have to back up. Thank you.
I share the comments about inclusion and the thoughts about that being an important aspect of President Olivares' tenure here. I also admired his commitment to literacy, and it's such a big problem in our society today. 1/5 of all adults are functionally illiterate, and I think virtually half of the students we see regularly are not at the level they need to be in order to succeed. And you touched on some of that in one of your earlier answers, but that would be my thought.
So literacy, collaboration, and then the right balance between inclusion but also decision making when appropriate, so that things don't get bogged down.
I'd add one more. Is that on? Okay. I believe that our former president brought was a true and genuine caring for people and the students, the staff, the community, a real nurturing environment, and sustaining that to help people be what they could be and continue.
Could I ask for a little more clarification? What about the president walking around and the informal interaction? That's something that any president, including me, struggles with. You've got to be out there in the community, and the internal stuff is important. Well, and how was that done here traditionally? What are people comfortable with, and what would you like of your next president?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question, because as I was thinking about what was missing or where an improvement could have been, I think oftentimes Dr. Olivares, there was a connection to him. He was very genuine. People generally believed in his philosophy as a person, but even in some of the research we've done in the institution, there's a culture climate survey we do every year. I can't remember what it's called, but one of the things that people oftentimes, the feedback is, we believe in the president, but we don't necessarily see it in our daily practice. And so connecting the philosophy and the beliefs of the president into the daily practice of the employees at any level is something that maybe could be more manifest in your life.
If I were your president, could we have an understanding about, me just going down a hall and overhearing something that sounds fascinating in a classroom and stepping in? Would that be a comfortable thing? Would that be something you'd be proud to show off, or would that make people nervous?
Well, I would. The first thing that went through my mind when you mentioned this is, when I was a student here 5 years ago.
All right.
The president's office was on the first floor of the. You didn't have to laugh so hard. The president's office was on the first floor of the main building, and I remember seeing him walk down the hall, and it was like, that's the president. That was and at one point we moved all the administrative offices over to another building, which was wonderful for administrative work, but we lost the president walking through our classroom floors on a daily basis repeatedly. And I personally liked that presence, both as a student and as a faculty member. I liked that.
Well, if I'm your next leader, I would like to maybe work out some system where if any faculty felt uncomfortable with that, I would know not to do that, but be encouraged by other people who were comfortable with it. And So one other question, did Dr. Olivares have an explicit open-door philosophy regarding people coming to his office and sharing their triumphs, their concerns? How did that work here?
Philosophically.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Practically, it's just too busy.
The time demands on a president are extremely significant, and so.
Yeah, I think the idea of walking around and being visible to faculty and staff and students is very, very important and a lofty goal. I spent some time in administration, and you have to work at being able to do that. And the meetings take over your life and the other things. So I would, if you happen to be walking down a hall and heard something fascinating in an economics class, I would love to have you come in there and say, wow, that was fascinating, and then maybe the students would think so too.
Right. Is our time up, or? Okay.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to raise a question?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I saw your hand.
Well, I don't know.
You're a good projector.
One of the things that President Olivares did when he became president in '99, I think is that he did what you were talking about, which is he allowed us, or he trusted us to to accomplish the mission, and we trusted him. The problem that I had was that we didn't know how we were being held accountable, and we didn't know how he was holding anyone accountable necessarily. I mean, that wasn't clear to me. So when you talk about trust and accountability, how do you do the accountability part? You know.
Well, you mentioned the relative state of good health in the faculty evaluation process. I guess that would be a base level answer to your query. If at the most basic level, if the faculty evaluation process is functioning well, that would be your most immediate level of accountability. Then you have to look at accountability of the institution as a whole to achieving the ends that the trustees have set. And my goodness, the activity that goes on at Grcc and the sophistication of use of data and information to develop that corporate accountability, it's a wonder to behold. I can't figure it all out. So individually in our own job descriptions and then together, from what I've been able to discern thus far and heard from you, it's in a pretty healthy state. Maybe you could say where the next level to be achieved would go.
I don't want to answer that question, but I just wanted to apologize. I didn't identify myself. My name is Bernie Manker. I'm department head for language and thought.
Very good. Thank you.
Was there another question that wanted to speak, Joe?
My name's Joe Hesse, and I'm a science teacher.
Morning, Joe.
Do you have any stories or examples of your ability to make friends in the larger business community, to grow the foundation, to be the face of the college looking outward, to connect with the larger economic business community that our foundation needs?
Yes, I do. A lot of my work in the community in Alpena has been with two primary organizations, one called Target Alpena Economic Development Corporation, which would be very similar to your Right Place here in Grand Rapids. I functioned as the facilitator of the executive committee for Target Alpena during a particularly difficult transition. And so within over a space of 2 or 3 years, just about every week I was in a meeting that often went for 2 or 3 hours, as there were some organizational problems, some leadership problems with the organization that simply had to be addressed in order for that entity to function, to invite businesses in, to support existing businesses in growing, or at least not leaving, as some of them sometimes feel like they need to do. And so I developed a very strong bond with a group of business and government leaders. Business and government working together, and the different levels of government working together had been part of the problem in Alpena. So we have a much higher level of functioning between the city, the county, and the township governments, as well as with the private sector leaders, than had been the case before we really set aside the time to have those inclusive conversations that we've been talking about that are so important for the internal work of the college. I'm also president of the Alpena Chamber of Commerce this year, which is work that I find very gratifying because in addition to economic development, you have community development as part of its mission. I am known, frankly, as somebody who's very visible in the community, good-natured, accessible. My wife calls me the small-town big shot, and I know it's going to be different in a big city, but I would hope even within a larger urban environment to get to know a lot of people, to be, well, I've used this terminology this morning too in the CLC, it's a new term for me, be the living logo along with you for Grcc. And those interactions with the community are just indispensable for us doing as well as we can. They ask about contributions and foundation work. Part of my vision for Alpena Community College, it says Alpena Community College is a learning environment renowned for outstanding quality of service. When you have that quality of service, and those connections with the people, those are the things that give you the basis for asking for money. And that's been another one of my growth curves as a president. I never thought as a faculty member I'd be going to wealthy people and saying, look at this great stuff we're doing. How about it? You want to be on board? But it's something that through the assistance of our foundation director, I've become very comfortable doing, enjoyed, surprising, almost fearless about it. But it's a very important part of the president to encourage those results and more importantly, to build the relationships that make those requests viable and credible. And the other part of it, of course, is the daily work that the college does, providing quality instruction day after day, week after week. I mean, that's the ultimate basis of making those kinds of requests. So it's a team effort that the president has to lead, but everybody has to participate in.
Okay, we'll take one more question, and then we're going to have to close this up. Gary?
Gary Burbridge, I teach in behavioral sciences, but I also wear another hat, Director of Sustainability here at the college. And I'm curious, first of all, about your experiences at Alpena in the area of sustainability and what you might bring here to help us, and also maybe your reaction to what you've seen about what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. Very good. The Alpena Community College has 5 core competencies that are comparable to your 8 or 9 GLOs, and one of those is how to interact with the world, and that includes not only diversity but also understanding the relatedness between human systems and natural systems, and the ethical and prudential obligations we have to make sure that we're making the best use of resources, we're being good stewards of them. I have the word sustainability has kind of exploded on the national landscape over the past year. One of the things in discussion with ACC faculty and staff that I've analogy, it's one of those things that I believe that will, in the process of suffusing itself throughout everything that we do in colleges and many and other organizations in society as well. Having lived through the civil rights era, I went through a time where it was a big identifiable new thing, the Freedom Riders, the marches and so on, to now, I mean, by no means have all our problems been solved, but it's suffused, it's throughout, it permeates everything that we do, respect for diversity. And I think sustainability is going to be one of those things that's in the process of being just multiplied and working its way into the organizational thinking. One of our trustees, Florence Stibbitz, has a particular interest in sustainability. Let me tell you how the discussion's gone there. I have, and we've talked about in our board retreats, I know it's much more than green buildings. It has to work through the curriculum and the thinking of people, the education of students as well. What I have asked the trustees to do is create a value statement. At ACC, we have a kind of I would call it kind of a stale college philosophy that, in my opinion, needs to be replaced by a set of values like the one that you have. And I don't think sustainability is one of your raters. I think the S stands for service, doesn't it? And so maybe an advance in Grcc's thinking about sustainability would be to consider whether there's room for another value or whether it's time to look at the value statement there. But I've asked the ACC trustees to work with me in a statement of values for the college, and sustainability would be one of the top ones. I look to direction for the trustees for saying, all right, what are the principal values and what are the parameters within which we live and conduct our business? I would hope that when we conclude this process in the near future, hope this fall, sustainability would be right up there with integrity and responsiveness and respectfulness, some of the ones that we may steal from you. So I think we're getting started with it, but I see a lot of evidence here I see Lori standing up, too, so I guess my time's up.
Yeah, I'm afraid our time is at a close. And so, Dr. Joynton, we do thank you for your time and your responses to these question lines today. And thank you, audience, for participating, and panel for raising these very important questions to us all. If you could be sure that you have your evaluation forms filled out, that would be greatly appreciated, and we will draw on those, and this will serve the panel for some feedback that they will be providing to the Board of Trustees. Thanks all, one and all. Reminder, tomorrow we're back here same time, same place for another candidate, so hopefully you can join us. Thank you once again.